Hello everyone and welcome to PravasiExpress TalkTime. With me here today is the dynamic and the creative Mohanapriyan Thavarajah, who will be talking to us about his experience at the Indian Performing Arts Convention as well as his upcoming performance at the Esplanade. It's an honor to interview Anna.
My pleasure.
So I wanted to ask you first and foremost, you've been someone who has been with the IPAC journey from the very beginning. You've also been a part of the organizing team that hosts IPAC. So from your standpoint, what has your experience been like and what's your main takeaway about being a part of IPAC?
Yeah. So it's been 11 years since I'm with IPAC. I'm first, my association with IPAC was as a delegate, and then I started teaching as a faculty. And also I've created a lot of modules for IPACs for the benefit of students, like Prayogam practical aid book that I've authored. So every year there's a layer that has been added to IPAC. It's not just teaching but also how to inspire young minds. And dance world is something very creative, and now it's vast. People take up different perspectives. It's not mere entertainment anymore. It's now almost become an educative tool. As far as the urban audiences are concerned, as far as the urban cities are concerned, how this tradition meet modernity, how do we propagate this art form, keeping it at relevance. So this is what IPAC tried to do, because only 10 days of class. This is not a full-time college that they attend to, but then it's almost give them the exposure of attending a full-time course in a college, where they'll be able to interact with the faculty, not just learning about the item, but the holistic approach to dance. From its choreography, from the composer's point of view, how the choreography is being thought through. So a lot of ideas and informations are shared in IPAC. I mean, physically and mentally, it's quite exhausting, but that is part and parcel of this journey. But then, though the classes are for 10 days, and the rest of the year is always about the reflection and imbibing those techniques that have been learnt in the class, in the classroom sessions and in performances. So it is already become a movement for Indian classical dancers in Singapore, and I think IPAC is one of the most significant event that has been marked in every year's calendar by every dancer in Singapore.
That's so true, Anna. And from what I know, every year in IPAC, like you said, you also create modules. And one such module that you have come up with is body conditioning, aduva practice and technique practice, and awareness of the physicality of your body. Now, I'm sure you're aware, many dancers these days are facing injury in their practice, pain in their practice, and the age at which these dancers are facing these difficulties is getting younger and younger. So as someone who has been a successful performing artist for so many years, what advice or what's your take on this, and what would you say to younger dancers?
So, I mean, there's a norm that in the society, if you're a dancer or a performer, and you are fit and you are fine, you're dancing, that's a good exercise itself. You don't have to do anything else. But actually, that statement is not right. When we look at athletics, for an example, a sportsman, I mean, they're professionals heavily on the ground, and I mean, their physical workout is their sport, but they don't just jump into that, and they also go into the process of body conditioning and every day condition their body and practice their muscles, and whatever the body requires, they give attention to it. But when it comes to dance, and this is more than the sports, and you are mentally engaged, you are psychologically engaged, you are physically engaged. So I feel that dancers' body is something that it needs to be tuned, and it needs to be charged before actually bringing to the physicality and the psychological aspect of practice.
Seriously, as a performer, when I was performing, I mean, it kinds of shows in different ages of your career. When you're 20s and your limbs and your muscles are already very young and tender, and you're able to do anything that a composition or teacher commands to do that. But when you hit 30s, then our system gets slowed down, right? Then the serious question is how do we sustain the stability, the strength? I think body conditioning, I mean, giving enough awareness to the body should come even very beginning part of our learning, because in 30s and 40s we should not go back and try to correct our body and try to go into a process of rebuilding our muscles and all that. So it's almost become a very essential part now these days. Lots of youngsters are talking about it, and I started reflecting a lot, because our positions in Bharatanatyams are not very um, easy to do also sometimes. The Armandi position is not actually very easy to do. Though it has a beautiful geometrical pattern, it requires your thigh strength, and it needs your agility of your knees. But how do we get that going for a longer run? Strengthening. And I've worked with physical trainers, I've worked with yoga instructors, and I've personally assessed myself with them with their training to understand how important these body awareness for dance. And that's how that I incorporate them. Though your adult sessions are going to be like for 30 minutes is fine to do 1 hour body conditioning, because that is going to help you in a big way for a longer run. So that Prayogam book that I've authored, it's actually a reflection of why do we need this body condition, why the necessity that the all dancers should look at their body well-being before get into intense dancing.
Actually, yeah, that's so true, Anna. Like, so many dancers feel that, yes, it's enough of an exercise, but you're absolutely right. It's definitely not. Yeah. And actually, speaking about the body conditioning training, and physicality, I know that you have also learnt other dance forms as well, like Mohiniyattam, like Kuchipudi, many others. So, what is it about Bharatanatyam that really made you pursue it in such a fashion?
I mean, out of my passion that I went from Sri Lanka to India to study Bharatanatyam, but I had a very little exposure to other art forms, but mostly I looked upon Bharatanatyam because that was my main major that I was learning. And I had, in my college, I had a little exposure to Mohiniyattam and Kuchipudi. And I always very fascinated by how a Mohiniyattam movements are so beautifully conceptualized, and I thought it's a very beautiful medium, and I wanted to learn more about it. When I actually started learning it, actually internally, and how these muscles are activated, and my perspective changed, and it's not a beautiful art form, but it is beautiful art form, but there are a lot of intense that is your body needs to churn and bring the beauty out of it. So similarly, also I was exposed to Kuchipudi. The one reason that I went from Sri Lanka and I was staying in India for a particular period, so I wanted to expose myself as much as many possibilities, and that's how I deviate myself to learn these techniques. But eventually, when I came to Singapore after my graduation, and I started performing full time, and that's when IPAC came, and IPAC is something like yearly vitamins that I take for my year long, and each artist who came to IPAC, I watched their performance, I watched their approach to dance, I watched their lifestyle that inspired by dance. All that changed my mind, and the relevant topic, the relevant composition, the vast study material they brought in actually made me think it's beyond items, it's beyond performing, it is researching. So that's how I got into research. The more I researched, the more I looked Bharatanatyam deeper into, I started falling in love more and more. And though then I realized that you have to give a full justice if you're practicing one discipline. Though I had the opportunity to expose to Mohiniyattam and Kuchipudi, but I realized that I wouldn't have the time to spend time on it. But definitely it helped me to my choreography aspect in the company. But today now when I learned, I'm actually learning Natya Shastra from Dr. Padma Subramaniam, and she has conceptualized this course called Charlie course, where they teach the Natya Shastra theoretical and practical aspect of movements and theories. Now I see how Natya Shastra, the aid that brings all the Deshi forms comes together, and how this text has inspired to drawn movements for their individual styles. So, so like every year, every time, and Baduka also, her knowledge was introduced by IPAC. So it was always expansion of knowledge, and it's always, the horizon is always set. There's no horizon. The horizon was going beyond. So inspiration is something that that happens every year, and every time when I meet different artists. Yeah.
And I think it's very, very evident, Anna, that your expansion of your theoretical knowledge is what really helped you with understanding how you want to practice your art form.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, you've also done a lot of research. You've also authored another book. So I would just like you to, if you could share a little bit about the research you've done and how taking a research-based approach has also impacted your journey.
Yeah. For me, I have to be inspired by something to move, because I'm a visual person. I love to read about culture, and particularly I love Southeast Asian culture, because every time when I go to Europe to perform, and the European people, they share so much. In their experience, I could see the fondness towards Indian classical dance. But then our work at Apsaras asks mostly towards Southeast Asian narratives, because we have commonalities, and Natya Shastra is something that commonly practiced within Southeast Asian classical art practitioners. So that's how in 2013 we did Angkor, an untold story, how the Angkor Wat, the largest Hindu monument in the world, was built, and our interpretation to that temple, and the Emperor Suryavarman II. So that's the starting point for my research towards Southeast Asian art and culture. And therefore, I did my MPhil. So I started to research about the Angkor Wat temple from the perspective of a dancer. Because the sculptures that you see, the stance of the Vishnu that you often see, that you often study in your dance theory as well. And when we had the opportunity to have the integration between two art forms, and I could find lots of similarities. So that's when it triggered that there's a commonality. And then when I went to research about it, then I found that the Natya Shastra is the practical aid that is commonly practiced. And therefore our research with Indonesian, Javanese dancer and Balinese dancers continued, and I'm keep exploring it. It's a fascinating landscape in the whole world, where we see a lot of culture. And sometimes when we go to these places like Cambodia is it's lost its charm, but it's almost become a tourist monument. The temples are not in active mode anymore. But in Bali, it's a Hindu island, everybody knows, and they made me feel made me less Hindu than all of them, because they were so proud about what they practice, and they were so into their art forms. And every household there's culture. Every child from the house will be a dancer, artist, poet, and puppeteer. Yeah, it's a fascinating journey.
No, that sounds like such a unique perspective to have when you're going through this journey as well. And now coming to our your Esplanade performance this weekend, you are such a beloved and well-known dancer in our local scene, and you are known for your novel thoughts and your unique choreographies. Especially with such a unique experience that you've had. Could you tell us what the audience can look forward to, or what something they should look out for your performance this weekend?
Yeah. So my performance is based on Lord Muruga. And Lord Muruga is someone who's much celebrated in Singapore during Thaipusam. Not in Singapore, Malaysia, and all over Asia. Lord Muruga has a very significant episode that are associated with him, and we wanted to take. I mean, it's actually a margam, but then it is going to unfold a lot of unknown factors of Lord Muruga to the audience, having the support of margam items. The main item is Skandarasam. We all know Skanda has 6 faces. How would 6 faces could represent 6 rasas? And some imaginations like this, opened up to look at Muruga in a very different way. And also it reveals lots of stories, not just for the art lovers and especially for the kids, I believe, because when we teach kids, we always introduce Lord Muruga as the little young son of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is always given the limelight because he's the Lord of dance. So, I'm sure this will be a take. And the interesting factor is, there are 6 episodes that I'm going to perform in the repertoire. But the 6 episodes will be taken through a journey as how we celebrate, how we meditate Kanda Shashti Varadam.
Okay.
So I have my artistic director Aravind Kumarasamy joining on those explanations. So it's a combination, it's a concoction of story, intellectual, spirituality, and a lot of things.
Yes. So I think it's going to be an incredibly informative, unique, beautiful presentation, and thank you so much for speaking with us today, and hope to see everyone at the Esplanade this weekend.